Welcome to OJ Studios. I hope you enjoy Punishment by Olivia Julius. Chapter 4 School Punishment. My dad's office sat tucked away behind the school's main office. Right in front of Dad's office sat a little reception area where Mrs. Yokman normally would drop me off, write my dad a note, and leave. But this time was different. Normally the secretary, an older lady, would stop Mrs. Yokman from going into his office, but her rage tore through that blockade as she threw the door open with me in tow. My father did not even turn around. He was not even surprised that I was being thrown into the office by Mrs. Yokman, even though this was the first time she had literally threw men into his office. What did he do? Dad asked with a sigh, but he paused when he saw the long hair that I was holding in my hands. Dad let out a big sigh and rubbed his temples as he thought about which girl in my class had long brunette hair. "Who is it this time?" Dad asked, grabbing the strands of hair from my fist and examining it. "Gracie, sir, I was teaching my class when this happened," Mrs. Yokman said. "The new girl?" "Yes, sir." Dad looked at me. I could tell he was mad. But I was not worried. All he ever did was stick me in the timeout area, which was just an old cubicle, and then I would have to stay in my room for a week. No matter how mad he got, he was always pushed over on the punishments. "Adam, this is the 5th girl this year that you have been sent to my office for," Dad said. I did not say anything. I knew how many girls I had picked on, and I did not care either way. "Adam, I don't know what to do with you. You got the rest of the day in the timeout room, but I'm going to let your mother figure your punishment this time," Dad said. I was taken to the timeout room by one of the teachers I did not recognize. Papers from my desk were stacked up on a smaller desk inside the room. I walked inside, and the teacher closed 2 walls together until I was blocked in. "Sit down and get to work," the teacher said. I did as I was told. By now I knew the drill, and had come to know that this was not too bad. It was quiet, I could do whatever I wanted, and sometimes the secretary would sneak me in a cookie. I sat there in the chair looking at the ceiling tiles, wondering what was going to happen. Dad always punished me at school and at home. Mom always claimed that she was too busy running her hair salon to worry about punishments. But this time she was going to do it. I was allowed to leave about an hour later to get my lunch from the cafeteria. I was escorted by Mr. Ray, our P.E. teacher. I tried to strike up a conversation, but he didn't speak. Instead, we walked straight to the cafeteria. As soon as I walked in, everyone stopped talking and watched me as I walked across the cafeteria. All eyes were on me. This was my class's lunchtime, so I knew the word had gotten out to not only the other class of 4th graders and the 3rd graders who shared a lunchtime with us and knew about what I had done. Mr. Ray pulled me past the other students, obviously not wanting to stand with a bunch of 4th graders waiting for me to grab my meal. I took a tray from the stack and smelled in the smell of chicken patty, my favorite of the school lunches. But instead of the chicken patty like the other kids were having, I got a special tray for kids who were in trouble. Instead of chicken patty with mashed potatoes and gravy, I got peanut butter sandwich and a milk carton. I walked back to the office with Mr. Ray following me and walked past my dad's office. His door was opened a crack and I could hear Dad talking. "What do you think should be done?" he asked. I could not see who he was talking to, but a female voice started to speak. "You asked her to pick out your son punishment. I personally believe it's a great idea," the other voice said. "It will teach your son." "I'm not," my dad began, but a male voice interrupted him. "Look, we are new here and we don't want to start trouble. We can help you do this. Gracie has been through an embarrassing event. Your son should do the same." I stopped for a second and tried to listen more, but Mr. Ray pushed me along and took me out of hearing range. I sat back down in my seat and ate my sandwich alone. Most of my homework was done and all I could do was sit and look at the old cubicle walls that surrounded me. And then it hit me. Gracie, a girl I barely met, got to pick my punishment. What did she choose? Her dad, or at least a guy that was defending Gracie, said I should go through an embarrassing punishment. But what type of punishment? Was Mom and Dad going to try to cut my hair? But I knew that wasn't it. Cutting my hair wouldn't have made Dad hesitant. He had been wanting me to cut my hair since the beginning of the school year. Given the circumstances, I think he would have given Gracie the clippers so she could do it herself. I reached over to a strand of hair and put it in my mouth. A nervous tick I was started to develop. I leaned back in my chair and wondered what was going to happen to me. If cutting my hair was all they had, go ahead, I'm not scared. Once 3 o'clock came around, I darted out of the office and onto the bus where I sat next to Eric. I took off my book bag and set it on the ground, thankful to see another person who was not my father again. Gracie went home early. Eric said she was crying. Then you shouldn't have made me do it, I said, even though I did not care. The only thing Dad would do was ground me in my room. By this time next week, the whole thing will brush over. The embarrassing thing that is meant for my punishment will not affect me too much. Besides, while I was in the timeout area, I already concluded that they were talking about cutting my long hair. I mean, what else could it be? The bus pulled away from the school slowly and I sighed, thankful that my dad did not make me ride home with him. Instead, I was going to be home by myself for a few hours until my dad got off work. Most likely my dad will ignore me until my mom comes home and then I will be grounded. I looked over to the seat next to me. 2 girls were staring at me, their arms were folded, and they looked mad. They were both wearing the black uniform jumper dress and red polo that girls in my grade wore, so I knew they were in 4th grade too. I guess they are in the other 4th grade class. What? I asked. I heard what you did to that new girl in your class. You should be ashamed. One girl said before turning to her friend next to her. Watch out, Mindy, he might cut off your ponytail too. I looked over to Eric for help, but he just shook his head. Don't look at me, I'm on their side, he said, before getting out his book to start his reading homework assignment, the same assignment that I already finished hours ago in the box. You're the one who dared me to do it, I retorted. I told you to stop. You already proven that you would go through with it. I had to prove that I wasn't a sissy. Eric laughed for a second. After what you did, you deserve to wear their uniform, he said, pointing over to the girls. You're a sissy. I leaned back in the seat and looked over to the 2 girls. They had stopped watching me and they were both looking at a magazine, giggling at the contents. I looked at their uniforms and chuckled to myself. There is no way I would ever wear something like that.